Hey, how's it going? It's me, Hayden, filming another video for Phoenix Music. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a beginner's tutorial on how to make Tech House. A lot of my tutorials are usually more advanced based, so I thought I would do a beginner's tutorial today for people that have only just started out in music production and they don't really know what to do. And yeah, so if you're one of those people, today's video is for you. And also, if you find anything in today's video helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like down below, and feel free to leave a comment suggesting a tutorial you want me to make. But yeah, let's begin. So here I have some drum samples. We've got a kick, a clap, and a hat. I'll play these for you. So kick drum, clap, and hat. A lot of tech house is based around the drum samples. Choosing the right samples for your track is always the best way to make your track sound good. If you've got a good idea for a track but you choose the wrong samples, it's probably not going to sound as good as you want it to. So choosing the correct drum samples is always important. There's not really any tips I can give on how to choose the correct drum samples. You just have to have more experience making tracks, and eventually you develop an ear for what drum samples will sound right. But you can always use these drum samples I've got here. These are the names of the samples. You can go on Splice and find these exact same samples. So yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create audio channels which we can put samples on. So you can do that by right clicking in this empty space of Ableton here and doing insert audio track, or you can do Control T on Windows. So then you can just drag the clap to here, you can drag the hat to here, and also if you want to duplicate, you highlight the part you want to duplicate. So I want to duplicate this whole part here, and then you can do Control D, and that duplicates. So let's do that. I want to duplicate this part here, I'll duplicate that. Same with the hat. So now we have, but I'm also going to change the tempo of the track. Tech house is usually 126 BPM. You don't have to do it at that tempo, but that's the common tempo, so let's just go with that. So we'll change it to 126 BPM, so now it's a bit faster. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my view. You can't do this in all digital audio workstations, but in Ableton you can. Or maybe you can. I don't really know. I don't really use Logic Pro, Fruity Loops, anything like that. But yeah. So then you can just go here and turn your samples down. The reason I'm in this view to turn the samples down is because it's just easier to see where the volume's hitting. So as you can see, they're all going quite high. Over here on what we call the master channel, which is basically the volume for the entire track, I guess you could say, that's peaking, which is where it goes red. We don't want it to do that, which means we have to turn the samples down over here. So let's turn the kick drum down to about -6. So that would be where you see this number 6. We want it to hit about there. Yeah, so that would be about right. And then with the clap, we want it to be a little bit lower than the kick drum. So maybe about here. And then we want the hat to be roughly around the same as the clap, maybe a little bit lower. Yeah, something like that. The master channel's looking fine, it's not going red. And then what we can do is we can get what we call a limiter, this one here, and we can put that on the master channel, which now we can use this to sort of turn the volume up. So this is going to allow us to make the track louder without the master channel peaking and going red over here. So we can just turn it up here like this. So then if I play the track now, as you can see, this thingy here is ducking and essentially compressing the volume sort of so that we're not physically able to peak and go red on the master channel. So this is what it sounds like without that and with it. So you can see we're louder, but we're not peaking or distorting over here, which is good. And now what we're going to do is use an EQ, which is basically short for equalizer, I'm pretty sure. And we're going to put one of these on the clap. You just drag and drop it. And now what we want to do with this is we have these different numbers here, which we're basically adjusting the frequencies. For example, if I pull this one up, this is boosting the high mid. If I drag it over here, it's doing the highs. If I drag it down here, it's doing low mid. So what we can do with this is we can change the shape of the first one by clicking here, and then we can change it to this one. So now it looks like that, and then we can drag it to about here. So now there's no low frequencies in the clap. It's only a little bit of low mids, some high mids and highs, which is really all we need because the kick drum is filling the low frequency range. So we don't really want the clap doing anything down there. So now the clap sounds like versus probably not a lot of difference you can hear, but it will make a difference when mixing your track later because then there's not a bunch of low frequencies building up down the bottom from all your different sounds and stuff. And if you really wanted to, you could also boost a little bit of high mids around here as well. Don't have to, but sometimes I like to do that. Yeah. And now we have, now we can go onto the hat. We can do sort of the same thing, but now we want to remove a little bit more of the lows, I would say. So up to about here this time. And then instead of boosting the high mids, we probably want to boost the highs on this one. So sort of similar to the clap, but slightly different. And now we have, don't really have to do anything to the kick drum. Sometimes I EQ the kick drum, but doesn't really need it in this case. Also, I'm going to turn the clap down just a little bit more. I'll turn the hat down a little bit as well. I usually adjust the volumes as I go. That's a very normal thing for me because the volumes that I get when I first start, later on I might listen back and think, oh, that could do with being a bit quieter or a little bit louder. So yeah, I'm always adjusting volumes when making a track. But yeah, now we have this beat. Now what we can do is we can create a group track and we can drag our samples into the group track. So this basically just means everything's grouped now. So we can close that. All the samples are in this folder and we can mute the folder. So now all these drum samples will be muted at the same time. We can also put things on the group channel which affect all the samples at once. It just makes it easier than going through all the samples and doing things individually because that would take forever. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get an OTT, which is a type of compression, but the difference is with OTT, you can individually compress the frequencies. With a normal compressor, it just compresses everything as a whole. It doesn't really do specific frequencies, but with an OTT, you can set it so maybe only the high frequencies are compressed or only the low frequencies are compressed. So it's a lot more useful in my opinion. So we're going to add that on, and we can, for starters, we probably want to turn down the amount. So we can just adjust the number here. You can either drag it or you can just type the number. I'm going to put it to about 16%, and now we have, if I turn it off, you can see that it makes the beat a bit more airy. There's a lot more highs in it, and then we can just see where the frequencies are hitting. Might do less compression on the low frequencies, like that. Maybe the mids as well, and maybe do a little bit on the highs as well to about there. Nothing too over the top. That should be all we need really. So with, without, and it also will help fill up your mix a bit more by having an OTT compressor on your drums. I also put it on things like my leads as well, vocals, quite a lot of things to be honest. But now we have our drums, I guess we can move on to the bass. So I'm gonna use a plugin called the VPS Avenger. I use this in pretty much all my tracks. So this basically allows us to like make our own melodies and stuff like that. And it's got a bunch of different sounds we can use, different effects as well. You can create your own sounds, lots of different things you can do with it. But for now, I'm just gonna find a good bass sound, I guess. So I'll choose a pack. Let's go for Tech House 2 because I imagine a Tech House pack would have good Tech House basses. Now we can basically just go through the sounds. This one could be useful, I guess. Yeah. So now we can create a piano roll. Easiest way to do this is if you've got your channel highlighted here, then just press record and it kind of appears. And then you can double click it, and now you have this, which shows you all your piano notes, and then you can draw the notes in like this. You can play it in if you want, but I think for Tech House it's just easier to draw the notes in. So I'm just gonna do a basic bass line. Something like this maybe. But I'm not really keen on this key. I could just highlight the notes and drag them down to a different key if I wanted to, but the easier way to do it, in my opinion, is to just use a pitch shifter. You just drag it onto the channel and you can just turn it down like this. So now we're 6 semitones down, which if we're in A here, that would be the same as going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the note we're technically on now, even though the notes are still showing up here. And if we play it now, might make it a slightly bit higher. So let's maybe do 4 notes. Yeah, somewhere around there should be good. But you're probably thinking that this bass isn't sounding very good with the drums. That's because we need to put our sidechain on. Sidechain is basically where every time the kick drum plays, doesn't have to be the kick drum, but it usually is the kick drum. Every time the kick drum plays, it will duck the volume to make room for the kick drum. So if I show you what I mean, I'll drag the sidechain onto here. So this is our sidechain plugin. So now this is where the volume's ducking here. So volume ducks and it goes back up. So now the bass would sound like this. So it's kind of bouncing the volume without it, with it. Now if we play that with the drums, now it sounds a lot tidier. And a little bit of a cool trick you can do is if you put an EQ onto the bass and you use this shape, you can remove some low frequencies. You are probably thinking that you wouldn't want to remove low frequencies from the bass as the bass is low frequencies. That's what it's supposed to be doing, fill in the low frequency range. But if you only remove a tiny little bit down the bottom here, then all that down there is just rumble really. It's not any tonal frequencies. So then like when you play it on sound systems in a club, things like that, it's not going to sound rumbly. It's going to sound a bit cleaner, which is a cool little trick I like to do. You don't have to do it, but I'd, I would recommend it if you want to have your tracks played in clubs and yeah. So um now the bass sounds like. So now if I drag this to here and click this, now we're in a loop. So wherever this thing is, it'll just keep looping what's in here. And yeah, that's the basics of how to make tech house for beginner, I think. There's not really a lot more beginner stuff I can show without going into more advanced stuff, but I'll probably do a medium level difficulty tutorial or something like that in the near future. But yeah, so if you like today's video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a thumbs up down below, and feel free to leave a comment suggesting a tutorial you want me to make. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.